Hello, Mrs. Hind. Hello, Miss Scott Dickens. And hello, all the amazing primary sixes. My name's Hannah, and I'm an artist, and I'm here in my studio in Leith. I work with lots of different materials depending on the project that I'm working on. My work is usually sculptural, so usually I work in 3 dimensions. And some of my work can be quite architectural in form. Let's take a look at some images of things that I've made. These wee houses were made as part of a film that I made with a group of other artists. I quite often work on projects with other people. It's called collaborating. This is a sculpture that I built from branches, and here you can see me covering it with clay. This one is a series of pieces made from wood, metal and string. And here you can see them at a festival in Aberdeen that I was asked to make them for. You can see that they glow in the dark. This one is a structure that I made for an event to celebrate Samhain, which is the old word for Halloween. She's a Celtic goddess called Clacta, and here you can see that we've set it alight for the evening. So some of my work isn't built to last. I'm going to be teaching you a bit about the built environment. So that's a term that architects and engineers and town planners use to describe what humans have built, all the stuff that's all around us. You guys have been working with Callum and Nicola to study all about the history of Leith. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to introduce you to 3 experts who are working on a project here in Leith to build some new buildings. We're going to be looking towards the future, and I'm also going to be setting you your own creative brief. So we'll leave the history to the experts, to Callum and Nicola, and we're going to get creative together. We're going to be focusing on the Kirkgate. Here's some pictures of the Kirkgate from the past. You're probably familiar with these from your work with our historians. Let's take a look at some of the plans for the Kirkgate. Now they might change a little bit over time, but these plans should at least give you a good idea of what to expect. The architects and the council did some public consultation, so they had some chats with lots of local residents about what they'd like to see built around here. And can you see they've made some models to give people an idea of what the buildings might look like. How about we go and meet our 3 experts? I asked them some tricky questions on your behalf.
My name's Leith. I am a senior construction project manager and I work for the council. The job I do involves working with all the different departments within the council and then all of the different professions that are involved in the built environment that don't work for the council employees, and we all work together to build houses. So the best bit about my job is the combination between getting to sit inside an office on rainy cold days and getting to come outside and visit sites on sunny days in the summer and sometimes in the winter. Like today. I had 2 favourite subjects at school. One was English and the other one was design and technology.
Hi, my name's Nicola McLaughlin. I work at Collective Architecture as a project architect. A big part of my job is working with the Edinburgh City Council. I'm working in the public sector to help the council reach their targets for new housing, new nurseries, and a big part of our job is actually engaging with the communities and giving people a voice in their own built environment. Here on the Kirkgate we're building over 30 new homes. 50% of those are family homes. And a big part of this project was about the urban realm and placemaking and creating new routes, new positive activated routes around the Kirkgate. Working again with the public sector, budgets and restrictions are top priority in some ways, and actually it can be quite exciting because you have to work within a framework and you have to consider everything to be the best it possibly can within the budget. So I think it's actually an exciting challenge, and a really important part of the job is to meet our targets and make sure they're using public money in the best possible way we can. I think what your favourite building is when you're an architect is a very difficult thing to answer, and because architecture is so much about the experience, it's very much about maybe what city you're in or what town you're in, or the activity that you're doing within the space, or who you're with if you're having so I think it's very difficult to say your favourite building. I love the 1960s, as you can see here. These buildings are still here and are a really important part of history, and this is now a Grade A listed block, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I think buildings can be very emotive and you get loads of emotions, and I get very excited when I see 60s architecture. So my favourite subject at school by a country mile was art, but it wasn't necessarily connected to architecture initially, and I was very fortunate to get an apprenticeship when I was 16, and that was my route into architecture. So I started working in a practice when I was 16 and went to college, and then eventually went on to university. So it was quite an alternative route into architecture, but I would definitely encourage more people to consider apprenticeships to get the experience before they go straight into further education. But if I was to design my dream project, it would be to build new homes without tight restrictions on space requirements. Sorry, that's really sad, but that is what my dream is.
My name's John Lawson. I work for the City of Edinburgh Council. I'm their archaeologist. My job is to work with my colleagues to investigate the past of Edinburgh. So Edinburgh's got a history that goes back over 10,000 years, in fact. And Leith is really interesting because it's a medieval town. So we're looking perhaps over 1,000 years of history on this site. So part of my job is to work with my colleagues in housing as part of the regeneration. So we're going to be building new housing. So before we get to build the new houses, we go in with colleagues from archaeological companies and investigate the site. So looking for remains of the past, such as pottery, bone, which tells us how the people lived in the past, so we can actually tell the stories of those people. One of the aspects of enjoying the job is actually the discovery of something new, because what we find, hopefully, is actually artefacts that have been buried for maybe thousands of years, and we're the first people to see those objects for that length of time. And these objects have been touched by individuals in the past. You can actually get that connection between what we do today and those people in the past. What do you think we're going to find on this site? It's actually a really important site in terms of how we think Leith was developed and grew. We'll also be looking for pottery, metalwork. We could get iron, your knives, your window glass, that sort of thing. And really looking at, from that we can tell something about how rich people were, where the pottery comes from. The pottery comes from all over Europe at this time. So that tells us about trade. So we could get French pottery, German pottery, and certainly in the 1700s we get a lot of Dutch pottery coming in. So we're looking for that, which allows us to make an image, tells us more about how people lived and where they're trading with. I had two favourite subjects at school. One was history and the other one was biology. And both are quite relevant to what I do today, because obviously history, learning about the past, and biology is also about the animal bones and ecology. So it maps about how we create a picture of the past.
Okay, I think you guys have done a lot of listening now. It's time for you guys to get creative. I'm going to set you a challenge. You're going to be working in groups. I imagine that your teachers will put you into those groups. And I'm going to give you 10 minutes to have a think about and a chat about what you guys would like to see built in Leith. It can be as simple or as fantastical as you like. It might be a building, somewhere for people to live, or a place of entertainment, or it could be a green space, an outdoor space. Leith is the most densely populated part of Scotland, so maybe you'd like to create some sort of public space, a place for people to enjoy. Maybe think about the different areas of Leith. Would you add anything to Leith Links? That's the green space you can see at the bottom of this photo near your school. Oh, would you build a new school? This orange line is the Kirkgate. What would you build there? Would you make any changes to the areas around the water of Leith, such as the shore? We can see the dark blue areas of the docks, but Leith doesn't currently have an accessible beach. Maybe you'd create a public beach. Here's a painting of Leith Sands showing the horse races which used to take place here. So we have had a beach in the past. Or maybe you'd design a statue. Here are three statues which currently stand in Leith. Maybe you know who they are. Who would you create a statue of? I'm going to give you 10 minutes to draw or write down as many ideas as possible. This is the sort of thing that I did, but you can do it however you like. There's no particular format. I just want you to get those ideas down on some paper. So pause the video and I'll see you in 10 minutes. You're probably familiar with Cable's Wind House behind me, affectionately known as the Banana Flats. What I've got here is a scale model. So it looks exactly like the Banana Flats, but it's tiny and it's made of cardboard. You can even see the curve that gives the flats the name the Banana Flats because it's bendy. When architects are designing buildings, they'll do most of the design work at their computer. But at some stage, they might find it useful to build a scale model. It might be useful for them in the design process, but also it could be really, really helpful to help a client, so the person they're designing the building for, to visualize what the finished building would look like. For some people, it can be quite difficult to work out what something in 2 dimensions on a flat piece of paper would look like when it's actually built in 3 dimensions. So that's where your scale model comes in. This building on Commercial Street was built as a railway station. It opened to passengers in 1846. You guys might know it better as the Citadel Youth Centre. Here's some images of some more scale models. These were made by students from Edinburgh University, and these ones are made out of wood. They measure about 40 centimetres in height, so certainly a lot smaller than the building we see behind me. So hopefully you understand the concept of a scale model, and in a moment I'm going to be setting you your main and final brief. You're going to be working either individually or maybe in pairs. I'm going to leave that to your teachers. They know how you work best. And you're going to be designing your very own scale model. Before you go ahead and do that, I'm just going to show you some inspirational images. Maybe you'll design something which goes on the water. Maybe you could take your inspiration from this boat on the shore or this lighthouse at New Haven. Maybe you'll design a tree house. What materials will you use? Here's some wooden poles on the Scottish Parliament, or some patterned sandstone at the National Museum of Scotland in town. Maybe you'll use lots of glass, like the dome on the Reichstag Parliament building in Berlin. Will the walls of your structure be at right angles from the ground? Or will you add some unusual angles, like the V&A Museum in Dundee? This building was inspired by the nearby cliffs. This structure in London has colour and curves. Perhaps you think that Leith could use a bit more colour and flowers, like this street in Norway. Maybe you'll look at pattern and texture, like this library in Birmingham. The patterns of this music venue in Iceland are inspired by the shapes of lava formations. Will you consider your impact on the environment? Here we have a converted shipping container in Argyll and Bute, and a turf roof to insulate this building. Maybe your design will be in the shape of something, like the Kelpies in Falkirk. In a minute, you're going to be heading to the materials buffet in your classroom. I've delivered lots of different materials for you guys to have a go at. Your teachers will get you all organised for that. I've provided a piece of paper for you all to use as a base, and I want you to have a think about how you're going to attach things onto that base. How are you going to build upwards in 3 dimensions? If I took this piece of paper and just tried to glue it there, it's just going to fall over. So something I could do is I could fold it So now it will stand up, but it's still not attached to the base there. So another thing I could do is get my scissors and make some little feet for it. I could either make 1 foot, like so, and I can pop some glue on there, or I could make several slits. Several slits is really useful if you're making a rounded shape, if you want to curve it round. Think about whether you want that flap to be seen on the outside of the building, or maybe you want to tuck it away on the inside of the building. If you're using glue, glue is your friend. Be generous with the glue. Do not skimp on glue. You might use some other ways of fixing, maybe a stapler. I've got a few other things that I've provided. I've also got lots of masking tape. If you're using masking tape, just take a little bit at a time. And my top tip for tearing it is, instead of trying to tear it in the middle where it just bends, if you take your fingers right to the very edge of it, so not in the middle, I'm at the very edge, and keep my fingers quite close together, and then you can just tear it. Or obviously if you want a cleaner cut, then you can use your scissors for that. Okay, I'm sorry I can't be there to help you out with all the building technicalities, but you guys are going to be like architects today. I want you to do some problem solving and get creative. And remember, this project is more about the creative ideas. I'm really interested in those rather than the finished thing that you come up with. But I'm sure you'll be great at both of those. Well, I hope you enjoy designing your buildings, and if you wanted to take photos of them, I would love it if you could send me some photos of your finished work. All right, cheerio now.